Right with me at the 54th International Festival of India in Goa is somebody very special, born American but living in Germany and loves India. So he's quite a multinational, I should say. James Higginson, welcome to DD Goa. And how's Goa treating you, first of all?
Very well. Thank you very much. It's been an honor and a privilege to be asked to do a market screening here. And it's been a culmination of 3 years of work on the film, but 15 years since my first introduction to the subjects.
It was wonderful reading and watching the trailer of the wonderful work that you've done, Shuddhi. It's something that means so much to all of us in India. It's a topic that you've selected so wisely and so passionately, surely something from the heart. So tell us where this idea of creating awareness about Hansen disease and the stigma that goes along with it came from.
Yes, as I said, about 15 years ago, I first visited Jodhpur, and I was invited to visit the ashram where I met the patients, and they literally touched my heart. And speaking with them and hearing their stories, specifically they're what we can call the last generation of people with severe physical effects and the stigmatization. At that time, they weren't all cured, but now, 15 years later, they've all gone through the medication, so they're now all cured, and there's no chance of transmission. And what touched me is that the fact that they have had this faith and combination of fate that has affected their lives. You know, the fate that just by no circumstance that they could control, they contracted Hansen's disease. And then they were stigmatized and shunned at that time, so they were forced to live in isolation in the ashram. And the patients have lived 30 to 50 years of their lives there. It is now defining their life. And they had to come to a peace within themselves and have faith that this was their way their life was going to play out. And there is such a resilient calm, and I have such respect for the way they have conducted their lives with honor and with understanding that it may not be their choice, but it is the way it is going to play out. So I vowed at that time I would do something more for them to honor their stories and also to promote and project the fact that there should not be the stigmatization around Hansen's disease any longer, especially here in India. It's free, the medical treatment. So I have now coupled with 5 worldwide NGOs for leprosy, and I'm going to use Shuddhi, the short film, as it plays out in festivals to raise the awareness and also have the film be a tool to inspire people to get tested, to expand the message to around their families and their communities. And I hope that through the film, a very poetic, artistic, beautifully crafted example of film, that it can open a new door for a different type of audience.
Yeah. In case you don't know, fate is something that means something to every one of us, and people who suffer from leprosy, it's just their fate, but it's the faith that they have that has helped them grow. James, tell us how did you go about setting up this documentary, the landscapes that you chose, the story, the characters? It's a wonderful story that you saw, that you showed us, where a grandfather is speaking to the grandson, and in keeping with Indian family tradition, virtues and advice that comes down the ages. That's something very striking.
Yep. Well, of course, I come from the West, so my lens is always going to be a lens of a Westerner looking at subjects here in India. But I wanted to very specifically, I did 6 months of research with assistants to make sure that I was going to be completely respectful to the people, to the culture, to the religion, to everything. And I wanted to get a true flavor, so I began my journey high in the snowfields, and I traveled the Bias River, and then to the Ganga, and then down the Ganga all the way to Rishikesh. And along the way, I shot the rivers and every beautiful vista that I could find. And I wanted to use water as the metaphor, and the cycle of water is the cycle of life, is the cycle that we are all within, inside the film. And this led me then to collect the water, bring it to Jodhpur, and I set up my typical way of working with them, because when they would see me, they would be, Mr. James, and be very, very sweet and very nice. And I had a very good, even though I don't speak Marathi, I had a translator who spoke Marathi to Hindi and then Hindi to English, and I was able to communicate with my Indian cameraman team. what shots we were going to do, and we would set up 3 to 7 cameras on any day. And then I would have observed how whatever individual we were going to shoot that day, what their pattern was. So they wouldn't necessarily know that they're even on camera. And then we set up separate times so that we could do a complete interview with them, and they could talk as much as they wanted about whatever they would like to talk about. And then I went back to Berlin with my editor, and we got everything translated, and then found 3 to 7 minutes maximum from their story that was the essence.
Yes.
And then I combined some of their stories into the character of Baba, the grandfather, because I couldn't show all of them in the film. And then this set up a very interesting particular dynamic, because the idea of the grandfather and the grandson talking on the Ganga about life and the fact that he was a patient at the ashram and that he had no fingers and toes anymore, and the beautiful voice actors that I used for the two characters. The boy that plays Dittu, he was so inquisitive and so curious and so beautifully innocent in his interpretation of the character for me. I truly felt like me as a grandfather was having my little grandson asking me questions in his cute little innocent voice.
Yes.
And Bablar Kocha, the voice of Baba, absolutely wonderful, meditative, and very soft-spoken, because the river is the grandfather. The grandfather is the river. The idea that we travel the rivers, we return to the river or to the water, and then we come from that.
And how has it been received in other cultures, in other countries? I know 60% of leprosy patients are living in India.
Yes.
But what about the other 40%? How has your story struck a chord?
Yeah, well, we are just beginning. I will premiere at JIF in Jaipur the first week of January. And then I'm very honored to be a part of RIF, Rajasthan International Film Festival, at the end of January. Perhaps there will be another festival in India in between that time. But the idea is I wanted to premiere in India, and then we're going to roll west.
Okay, 1 minute, then I'll rephrase that question. So James is premiering now shortly, your documentary, and how do you intend to take it around the world?
Yes, it will premiere first week of January in Jaipur at the Jaipur International Film Festival, and then also appear at RIF in the Rajasthan International Film Festival. The idea, I'm here for 2 months. I would like to do as much press and publicity as possible to help spread the awareness, begin the impact campaign here in India, where it is most important. And then we move to the other countries, roll west, then to Europe, later in the spring, and to the US late in the spring, early summer, and then into Australia later in the fall. I've already been booked in October to be part of an international symposium through the German Leprosy Organization.
Wow.
And they're very, very keen, because they see the potential of Shuddhi to really inspire awareness and a discussion, so that we can actually, my goal and wish is that I can help end leprosy in our lifetime. So we're looking for the right businessmen that want to put some money into the idea of helping us end this, just like Bill Gates did to malaria. We need to find the person that will be willing to come on board and help us make this a reality.
And final question, I read that you are one person who goes or concentrates on off-the-road topics, and one lovely topic that film that you did on was in Georgia.
Yes.
Called Devout,
Yes.
about the priests. How do you get these ideas?
I'm very organic and intuitive, and when I'm not working, I take my time and I travel. And then I say that I'm just a channel. I'm a channel, and the light that comes through me, I'm supposed to use my creative energy to create something, and the subjects come to me. Just like organically, Shuddhi, the development of Shuddhi, everything came to me, and I was presented, and I just had to ask the question of, why are you here, and what is it that it is going to deal with what I'm making? The same thing happened in Georgia. I had students that were in my class in Berlin. At the university, they invited me to come to see Georgia. I took a trip to Georgia, and then I was introduced to a troubled youth there, and he said that he goes for counseling to monasteries in the remote in the mountains. And I said, could I come along one time when you're going for a counsel session? And he said, absolutely. And he arranged, and I went and I met this 18-year-old monk. He became a monk at 16 or 17, and he was absolutely very present and very different than your typical Orthodox Christian monk. I mean, he was very altruistic. and very like, I saw him as the next generation that is more spiritual and less dogmatic.
Okay.
And so I set up a situation where I would follow him. And took 3 years, went back every summer for 4 weeks and followed him and his journey, and that became the film.
And really the final question now, your love story with India, how did it begin and where?
It began again with students. I teach at a university in Berlin, and some Indian students came for a summer session, and then after 2 weeks, they said, Mr. James, you must come back to Delhi. You must come to India. You've never been. So I brought some students with me that year, and I had no clue why I had never visited before. But as soon as I landed and I entered into the city and I saw what you could say is the confusion, but it's not confusion. And I use the metaphor of the water in the river. It's like the river. Everything flows and moves from the cows to the ox, to the carts, to the tuk-tuks, to the taxis, to the people. Everything moves and flows in such
Somehow.
a beautiful, respectful way. It does. And I said, I must stay. I must stay. This is just such an amazing place.
So there you are, James Higginson. He has really moved mountains himself in India. His aim is to end Hansen's disease, that's leprosy, in his lifetime, in our lifetime. And thanks for joining us, James, and all the very best.
Thank you
to
so very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.